Okay, hello everybody. The Right Spotters, we're back again. Shane and Chris here.
Let's
Uh,
go.
let's go. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about the other side of writing, which is the reader, because you can write all you want, but if nobody reads it, meh. So it's always important to know the audience you're writing for, know where your writing is going to end up. Are you writing to be published by a certain website? Are you writing for your own blog? Are you writing for your own social media pages? People that follow you on Instagram, wherever. So know where your writing is going to appear. And really knowing your audience, knowing your reader base, knowing your target client base is kind of something that trainers are familiar with. Because trainers have the vast majority of trainers have a target client, an ideal client that they want to serve, that they can best serve. So knowing your audience as a writer will kind of inform how you write. It'll influence what you write about, the way you write. So Shane, what are your thoughts? How do you find your audience? How do you keep them front and center in your work? What's what?
Wow, that's a great question, Chris. So, I think we've touched on this before that I think all trainers who want to be writers should have a blog. So let's start with writing for your blog. So knowing your audience when you're writing for your own website or for your own social media pages, it's all about the ideal client, right? That is your audience, is your ideal client. So that's the person you should be speaking to. So if you're a trainer and you know who your ideal client is, then boom, that's your audience right there. So that really determines the subjects that you write about and the language that you use in the articles. So we've spoken about fitness jargon before. We've dedicated a whole podcast to it. They don't know jargon, right? Particularly general fitness population. So when you write and you know your audience, then you can be specific with what you can write about and knowing which language to use and what not to use. And also, what subjects to write about. So with the audience for publications, I think particularly if people who are watching and listening now who want to get published in a certain magazine, they want to get published in Breaking Muscle, they want to Garage Gym Reviews, Muscle and Fitness, bodybuilding.com, Muscle and Strength, whatever. I think it is really, really, really important, and it's just a really obvious statement, is you got to read their stuff. It comes down to just reading their stuff and figuring out who are they speaking to and then putting it through your own filter.
Right. I think that's definitely a great point. If you're looking to be published, which we touched on this in another discussion, if you want to be published on a specific website, you need to know who's going to be reading that website. Like Garage Gym Reviews is less likely to publish a workout program that requires a leg press machine and a hack squat machine and a leg extension machine and all this stuff, because it's aimed at home gym lifters predominantly. So if you come up with this expansive workout that requires 6 different machines, which is hyperbole because that's a silly workout, the audience at Garage Gym Reviews is not going to be able to apply your information. That could fly at bodybuilding.com or T Nation or something like a different avenue. It also has to do with like your knowledge base, because like we said, trainers are capable of training. Qualified trainers are capable of training a wide variety of people. But we just talked about your training a little bit ago. Like Shane, your training, I could throw anybody at you. I could refer anybody to you, and I'm confident you could train them, get them results. But in your blog, you're not really writing to like college football players. So you I'm pretty sure you don't invest much time or energy teaching how to clean and press or how to squat 455 on your specific blog. I do not doubt you can get people to that goal because you are capable. But on your outlet, on your personal blog, your professional blog, you always respect your reader and you're speaking to a certain demographic, which is what all businesses do. McDonald's in India does not sell cheeseburgers. It's veggie patties, it's chicken. It's they respect their client base. In India, they don't eat cows. So they don't sell beef burgers. They
That's a good
adapt.
point.
They adapt to their target market. And that's what fitness writers need to do.
That brings up something else in my vast noggin of my head, is that particularly when you know your audience like you just talked about and you adjust to it, I think it's also, I'm a big believer in staying in your lane. Personally, nutrition is not my strong point. And never right. I know the basics, obviously, like most trainers, but I don't talk or write about it because I don't really know about it. Now, I think, everyone strays out of their lane, but I think people's bullshit detectors are really so high these days that I think the combination of knowing your audience and also just staying within what you know, it's perfect.
That's huge. It's and that it can be tempting for a trainer to try to write something for everyone, but focus on your strong points. Stay, like you said, stay in your lane, and you'll be able to create better content. So I would rather see a good trainer write an amazing workout article than a half-assed nutrition article. That could have been written by anybody. If you're an expert,
yeah, right.
If you're an expert in a topic, showcase your expertise. Like Mark Ripito, who had probably arguably one of the most successful published books of all time, Starting Strength. He doesn't write about how to target your upper pecs. He doesn't talk about how to build your lower biceps, if that's a thing to debate. He focuses. It could. We'll get into it. I think. Ripito focuses on his strengths, literally, which is building strength in novice lifters. He doesn't try to appeal to the broad market of anybody who works out, or he doesn't try to bring in or convert, soccer players, competitive athletes. He's about building basic fundamental strength, and he does it very well, cantankerous as he may be.
Yes.
So know your strengths, be confident in what you know, and you'll be able to develop and put out great content, which is what's going to bring you to the top and going to get you even more attention. It's not worth doing a B+ article or a C+ article that anybody could write. You always want to write something that only you can create.
Yeah, that's great. I was also thinking about, and it's gonna come back to me. So I think trainers who struggle to know their audience, or I know who their audience is I think a great starting point for them is to ask the current clients they have now, one, why do they like them? And two, what do they struggle with? Now, when you find out what your clients struggle with, that's just a wealth of article information just right off the bat. And knowing what they struggle with will help you define who really your audience is and who you're speaking to.
No, I think definitely it's looking into your available resources. Your available resources are your client base. They're people who've already invested time and money into you. They already said, we like you and your skills. We like what you're doing. Help us. So it only makes sense to either straight up ask them, hey, what brought you here in the first place, or what are we going to be working on? But also, if you just take session notes, like I guided Jane through the Bulgarian split squat, and I came up with this awesome cue, and that's you can turn that into a quick little article. So your hands-on session notes are another resource that works real world and applies to people who want to know what you have to say because they're your client.
It's funny you should bring that up because that's how Dan John wrote all his books. That's just from taking notes.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
that's all of his books are written from his training journals, pretty much.
I mean that makes sense.
I mean, you bring up a great point. I personally don't take session notes, but I think it's a great idea.
It is.
And I also think it's a great idea for trainers who struggle to know who they're training and know their audience and want to get into the writing field. It's just tap their clients, dude. It's not
Crazy.
rocket science. Sometimes I think a lot of the times we overcomplicate things. We can overcomplicate writing just like anything else. But I think just basically asking your clients what they struggle with, right, is just it's like a gold mine of information, and will answer what you're going to write about and who your target market is. It answers both of those questions just with their struggles. Because I think an underrated quality in being a good writer, and particularly being a good fitness writer, is just solving people's problems. That's it. That's pretty much all I do. It's like, you got 15 minutes to work out. Here's a solution. Bang. Here's a workout for you. Boom, boom, boom. You're just solving problems, right? What are the 6 best bicep exercises to get bigger biceps? Here you go. Boom. There it is. Just solving problems.
It is. And I think that also ties into credibility and real world application and giving advice that actually works. Because a lot of times I see written content, training content, that you just this trainer pulled it out of thin air and has never applied it, and he's guessing or hoping it works.
He's read Super Training, right?
Nobody's read Super Training.
I haven't.
No. So I think that comes back to a big issue in the industry, is that people who aren't trainers giving advice. Like, fundamentally, that's a pervasive issue, and that's a big problem with fitness influencers on social who have no credibility and no hands-on client skills or client work. So I've joked before with some other friends that if I see a trainer write a workout program and there's 4 barbell exercises and you're supposed to superset them, that's never been done in a gym. That trainer either has a personal gym where they train clients, or they're guessing. You cannot prescribe or suggest somebody go to the gym and use 4 barbells in a series, in a circuit. Not going to happen. Will not happen. Has not happened. So if you see little things like that, like, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit, but there are red flags where if you see content and that that hasn't been done, that's a guess at best. And a lot of times readers can't really tell the difference. That's something that you see peer to peer, that like other trainers can pull bullshit on. But you always want to give advice that will help people, that works. So it's always got to be applicable.
Yeah, and I think that ties back into, when you know your audience, you can give practical advice.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes. And again,
No matter if you're writing for publications or you're writing for your own blog or you're writing on your social media, when you know who you're trying to help, then the advice that you're going to give is dialed in. It's already, I mean, all you have to do is draw on it because we've spoken about before. You have the knowledge already, right? Use it. Don't need anything different. It's already in that noggin of yours, right?
that's the thing. Trainers know training. You have the information. You can always be a better writer, but if you're not a good trainer to begin with, it almost doesn't matter how good a writer you are, because you can only fake it for so long, for so far. So if you want to be a fitness writer, you need to be a qualified, legit trainer. You
True.
really, you can be a trainer without ever writing anything. Plenty of people have done that, but it is very difficult and probably unethical to be a fitness writer giving training advice without being a trainer.
In the first place,
Right.
it happens.
It
Still
happens.
happens a lot now,
I
right?
wish it
But yeah,
didn't.
yeah, it does. It does, and again, that's why we're doing this. And knowing your audience is a huge part of it. But I think if you're an aspiring writer and you're watching me and Chris talk right now, and you have no idea who your audience is, find out. Find out. I think basically, I think even before you put pen to paper, that's where you should start.
Well, yeah, and again, otherwise you're writing just to write, which is just practice. Practicing writing is fine, but writing without having an audience or without an audience in mind, you're kind of just like you're just doing warm-up sets and just warm-up sets, and you're never actually training. It's the same idea. If you don't know your audience, who's going to want to read whatever you write? So again, if you're writing to be published for a specific website, the audience is kind of built in. Like if you decide you want to write for Box Rocks, you're going to be writing CrossFit focused stuff. If you want to be published by Muscle and Fitness, that's a little more broad with the fitness, but you're going to focus on muscle building, most likely fat loss, that type of stuff. If you're writing for, Runner's World, you're not going to be writing about deadlift rep maxes. So if you're writing to be published online, like Shane said, know the publication, know the outlet, read some of it, get a feel for it, and then you'll know who you're writing to and who's going to be reading it. If you're writing for your own social media, Facebook has a different audience than Instagram, than Pinterest, than Threads. So even in the social media sphere, you can fine tune your information to the target audience. If you have your own blog, you're writing to your clientele. And again, if that's ultra marathon runners or competitive powerlifters or Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, you know who your client base is. So all these different ways to present your information all come back to knowing your audience and who's going to read the stuff you're writing.
Another thought happened in my big nugget of mine. Knowing your audience is obviously important, and we've just been talking about that. But I don't know where I got this from or where this advice is from, but when I write, yes, I know my audience, but I'm writing to one person, not writing to a million people, not trying to please a million fans. I'm trying to please one person, right? And I think that's important, particularly in the attention social media age where we're trying to get as much attention as possible, and you're using whatever methods you are to get attention. But when you write, yes, it's important to know your audience, right? But when you do know the audience, just speak to one person. right? Don't speak to a million people. Don't go off in a million different directions, right? If your audience is overweight mums over 40, then speak to Susan down the road who's going through the same struggles. Speak to her, and then when you speak to that one person, you speak to everybody because everybody's suffering from those problems, right? Everyone's facing those same issues. I think that's important for riders to just have that distinction.
I think that's huge, and that's really dialing in on your audience. Like if your audience is 25-year-old me, stuff I wish I knew back then, right to that person.
Right to that point, you're right to that one person.
Yeah, because and again, a lot of issues, like you said, a lot of issues are universal, so a lot of other people will relate. But if you try to write to appeal to everybody, you're going to shortchange yourself, and you're going to have boring writing, and you're not going to stand out at all. Because if you try to please everyone, nobody ends up happy. If you try to please one person, and you know that person down to their likes and dislikes and their favorite foods and whatever, that some business advisors recommend, like creating a biography of your ideal individual client, then you can go all out. You can make references to Cameron, Ferris, and Sloan, and if they get the movie reference, awesome. If they don't, then they're not your target audience. You can, if you know exactly who you're reaching out to, then you'll reach them and people like them. If you try to reach out to everybody, you're going to reach out to nobody because you cannot. It's impossible.
That should be on a t-shirt.
Get me on Shopify, and we'll see about that.
Yeah, but I think when right, like just to kind of summarize what we've talked about. So when writers know their audience, if they don't know their audience, then basically they should start there. If they're struggling to know who the audience is, ask their clients that they train now, right? Okay, so that's particularly great for your personal, your Facebook type stuff, your social media, your blogs. Okay, so if you want to get paid to write and you want to be on a certain website, you just have to read their stuff. There's just no other way around it. You just go through their stuff. Before I even was published on Barband, I read everything, just all their stuff. When they first came out, I started reading their stuff. Jordan Syatt shared their stuff. That's how I got on. That's how I got onto Barband, because Jordan Syatt used to share their articles around it, and I used to read them.
Right.
And it was like, oh man, this is awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
I read their stuff. So when I ended up writing for them, I hit the ground running. I was lucky enough to write for them, and I hit the ground running. So I think that's important for aspiring fitness riders, is asking their clients their problems, and also reading. I can't specify that. I can't emphasize that enough. Read. Right?
Read.
I mean, I get probably once a week, I get someone asking me for advice for a shortcut about, so how did you end up writing for so and so, or what did you do to do this and whatever. And I said, well, I wrote a blog for 10 years.
That's the shortcut. Put 10 years into it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a blog. I've been training clients for 15 years. So I think it's important to emphasize that obviously you have to know your audience and you have to practice your craft, but you gotta play the long game if you're serious, right? Yes, it's great to be published and make money from your writing. It's fantastic. I really love it, but God, it took me a long time to get there. So long, so long. I think that's anybody who's listening who wants to be an aspiring fitness rider, right? I think my number one piece of advice is just hang in there. If you're serious about it, hang in there.
I mean, that's huge advice.
And hire us. That's the other one. Hire us and hang in there.
Those are hand in hand. It's like that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's awesome advice. And just to squeeze one more example in, I mean, Ben Bruno started off writing for T Nation in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And overnight success, 15, 20 years later, the guy's training Hollywood A-listers and Victoria's Secret models and professional NBA players. But he started off quite humbly as a fitness writer, getting some exposure, being published, and he put the time in, and in the blink of an eye, 2 decades later, he's one of the best in the country.
I read his blog.
Yeah, he had a blog also.
I read his blog.
He had a blog for a very long time, for sure.
Yeah, I've read his blog. I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember reading his blog.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's just.
He doesn't.
But yes, but you're right. He pay your dues. Can I drag out that cliche?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ben Bruno I think is a great example of a dude who paid his dues.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He studied under Eric Kresley. He studied under Mike Boyle.
Yep.
He took internships there. Man, he's a living example of paying your dues.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no such thing as overnight success.
No, not so much.
Yeah, and we could say the same for Jordan Syatt, as well. Two of the guys that I really admire and respect in our industry, Roger Lockridge and Lee Boyce, same deal. They've been doing it a long time, right? They pay their dues.
A common thread between all those guys is their published work. For years and years, they've had blogs. They've put out written content simultaneously while training clients and doing all the other steps. But it can't be argued that their written content helped to bolster them and spread spread awareness of them, and it supported them professionally. So they all got that start with writing.
That's true.
So,
that's true, and I think, like I said before, two most important things: hang in there, hire us.
Subtle, yeah.
I'm going for my salary, Chris. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, right. All right, so you really just laid out a bunch of the good key points to get started and to keep your audience center focused. Because if you're writing, you need readers. So always respect your readers and anticipate your readers and have a readership in mind. Otherwise, you're just practicing writing. Practice is good, but it needs to go somewhere further.
Amen. Good stuff.
Good stuff, sir. Anything else? We good? Anything else to add? I think we're very good.
Covered it.
All right. You guys have any other questions? You can email them in to writespotters@gmail.com. It's right with the W, like always. We're on the socials @the Right Spotters, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks.